Okay, your data points are good enough for full marks. You're getting basically 1 plus 1 for the observation, 1 for the data, 1 for the units. You mentioned index numbers in there, so that's enough. Again, the second one is using range as a way of identifying volatility as acceptable. So 1 plus 1 plus 1. So you'll get a total of 5 maximum for your data observation. I would say, just as a general rule on data observation, that it is where it's two variables in something like a line chart that you see here, just highest value versus highest value, lowest value versus lowest value is enough. And that can be delivered more concisely and precisely than the observations that you've made. If you can perfect your technique on 10 and 15 mark questions and carry that into the essay, then you will do very well. You'll be scoring at least level 4 on an essay 17 out of 25. So basically what you're not doing here is opening with definitions. Anything that could be regarded as a key term within the question should be defined and developed in order to score up to 2 marks on a 10 mark question and up to 4 marks on a 15 mark question. So there's no definitions here to start with. You go straight into the clarification of perfect competition. Okay, so you've gone straight into perfect competition. There's up to 6 marks for defining the characteristics of perfect competition. Large number of firms selling a homogeneous product. Few barriers to entry, no barriers to entry in perfect competition. Okay. Only 3 marks out of 6 possible other characteristics should be highlighted up to a maximum of 6, such as perfect information and price taking. All of these things are relevant to perfect competition, so there's more marks to be taken there. Diagrams in general are good. You get 2 marks for definition for the market diagram. You get 2 marks for the firm. Your explanation of the diagrams, I think you could have had another 2 marks on the diagram if you had shown a shift in the supply at market level, bringing the firm back into equilibrium at normal profit. Again, you haven't highlighted the losses within the diagram for the firm, so I think there's a couple of marks. There's up to 6 marks of diagrams there, so you've lost marks there. In terms of your explanation, unfortunately the rest of your explanation doesn't really make much headway in terms of a simple explanation of how a fall in demand will lead to losses and therefore the exit of firms. I mean, I'll give you 1 mark for going out business if we put that there. They're more efficient. In many ways the firms are already efficient. What they need is simply they're dictated to by market conditions. So there's not enough about the change in market conditions. I think there's only 1 extra mark there in that whole section, which would give you 8 out of 10 overall. So basically no definitions, losing 2 marks. The whole idea of perfect competition is not fully developed in terms of the characteristics, missing out on 3 marks. The diagrams are not fully developed, missing out on another possible 2. And then your description of how the reduction in demand impacts upon the profit position of the firm and how the firms react in order to bring about an equilibrium in the longer term, is not clear enough at the end. So although 8 out of 10 sounds like it's good, we should be aiming for a clear 10 out of 10 on a simple question like this. also refer to the extract. Yeah. Let's go on to the essay. Okay, the general rules on essays is you need at least 2 issues for level 4. You need a solid conclusion for level 5. You need a reference to the extract to remove the cap at 21 marks out of 25. Any introductory section should be about building confidence in your understanding. Unfortunately, straight away we're making a confusion between the Eurozone, the EU and the SEM. The Euro is only, as you say, 18 out of 27, but the single European market, I mean, we're part of that in the UK. The extract tells us, yet we're not part of the Euro, so there's confusion there. Got application here, first of all, so that removes your cap at 21, which is good. With the line to the extract and line number, which is the way to do it. Problem of monopoly. So again, we want a clear identification of what the issue is about. One would have to assume within this that you're going to go to talk about how monopoly, the problem of monopoly, is alleviated by being part of the single European market. Maybe it could be said more clearly, but let's go on to see. Certainly your diagram as a representation of increased competition of a monopoly position for Tesco's before being part of SEM is valid, but I mean there is a little bit of a problem in the way you're arguing, because we're already part of the SEM when you were arguing it as an advantage of joining, which is problematic. Also titles, figure 1, and say what the diagram shows. It makes it easier to refer to it. The whole angle of this essay is problematic because of your misinterpretation of the question at the start. So I'll give you some analysis here, but again it would have to be questioned. Go on, maybe. So we're talking, basically, remember we're talking advantages, disadvantages for retailers and for consumers, which kind of gives you a structure to your essay that we're not clearly following, but let's see how it goes in terms of issue 2. Number of opportunities, so we'll accept this as I2, shall we? Market size, okay, so currency, again, you know, it's just not going to go down well, your confusion between Eurozone and SEM. I think your point about cheaper labour is valid, and it could be developed as a point for firms being able to access lower cost labour. Okay, so there might be some analysis there, but again, the confusion between Eurozone and SEM. I can see smaller firms, you're going with like a perfect competition analogy and the idea of lower costs and the creation of profit. I think it's acceptable in general terms. I mean, supernormal due to low barriers to entry, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I'd have to question mark that analysis. If you read through it, supernormal profit due to low barriers to entry, new entrants will charge lower prices, reduce back to normal profit. there's just a question mark there on. Okay, we're moving on to another section of the essay. Greater competition. Marketplace will drive efficiency of British firms as they complete with low-cost labour. I mean, that's a valid point. Oops, let's go from there. Yeah, the main benefit of the consumers is that they will receive a greater choice at a lower price. Okay, but again, you know, sounds like you're being evaluative within this, but you haven't really developed the idea of the consumer perspective. Let's see if that was okay. The whole misinterpretation of what the single European market is about just kind of skews this essay away from being an effective treatment of the question set. I'd have to say that there's some understanding of the impact of competition, but it's not really developed in any effective way, and your reference to the consumer benefits as well is just a little bit at the end of the essay rather than being a key part of the essay. So, I mean, I'd have to hold you in level 3, and perhaps say that there are a couple of points that are of relevance. Perhaps 12 out of 25 would be a reasonable essay with reasonable analysis and limited evaluation. You have got some limited evaluation at the end, but it is that misconception of what single European market means and the fact that Britain is already in it and already experiencing it, which is the problem. Again, we talked about technique on 10 and 15 mark questions, opening up with clarification of key terms and development. In 50 mark questions, usually up to 4 marks available. Your mention of income inequality is not a key term within the question set. There's something about earnings that you could, and the nature of the labour market. So basically we're missing out on those introductory marks, the 4 out of 15 for key terms. Okay, you're into your explanation of the difference in the gender pay gap. Wage differentials is your first point. 1 for identification and 7 for development on this side. There's no limit to the issues that you could develop. Okay, yeah. I think it's mistaken. Basically, women are more likely to get a degree than males. However, once they've graduated, males tend to earn more with a degree than women do. So this first point, I think, is incorrect. You're conflating issues here when you start talking about the idea of the nature of work that people and their childcare commitments. So there's no clear issue coming out of this. It's difficult to identify, development of a point. I might give you another mark for another thing being identified here. So I guess that this diagram is valid in the sense that perhaps banking is a male-dominated profession while caring is a female-dominated profession, and therefore that's why it can explain earnings differentials between males and females, which makes the diagram valid. Although the stepped and chain of analysis before it is not clear in terms of establishing this point. We're going to give you benefit of the doubt here and give you 2 marks for your diagram. Each supporting diagram is worth 2 marks to a maximum of 4. And again, your analysis is about supply curves, But again, whether or not it's valid in terms of explaining the differential. Gender discrimination is a valid point. Okay, we'll give you the idea of peer identity. Second, low paid jobs and shorter hours if they have a class for longer hours. Again, once again, we're stepping into another point without clearly marking where our transition is. Shorter hours and family, longer hours. So, the idea of hours work could be as an acceptable point as well, but there's no clear chain of argument within any of the points developed. Or add up the marks you've got. And that gives you 7 out of 15. Again, I don't think, you've got to be clear about the issues you're developing. So if it's discrimination, it's about the different perception of marginal revenue product and the reasons why people perceive that males have a higher marginal revenue product than females and therefore higher wages generated. If it's about the types of jobs that they focus on, say caring versus banking, then that is something to develop. But your development and your explanation, your diagram are not linked or developed. Okay, on to the essay. Assess the view that increased female membership of trade unions would be the most effective way to raise women's earnings. Could have been a valid point in your first discussion. Many union-dominated professions that generally have higher wages than non-unionized professions are male-dominated. So that could have been something explaining the gender pay gap. Here we got the focus of the question: assess the view that increased female membership of trade unions would be the most effective way to raise women's earnings. Okay, so obviously explaining how it happens is where we want to start. You start by establishing the nature of trade unions, which is a good place to start. Okay, your first issue is quite obviously the idea of the impact of trade unions on outcomes. You've got collective bargaining, a good term to use, maybe an explanation of what it means. Okay, the fact that there may be a cost as well is a weak evaluation point, which is fine. You kind of, this is enough, for the initial point that we're making. We're just establishing how unionisation within a labour market can lead to a higher wage level for workers than it would be in a competitive labour market. This you need to save for later, because this is your count. This is a strong argument about why trade unionism should be effective at raising women's wages. But let's see. So you're certainly getting analysis. They're good, clear diagrams here. And then you've got your discussion underneath. So unemployment, so the however, however, there's some weak evaluation there. Its wages, firm is discriminatory. This would mean that women could be laid off, not affected. Not sure what that means. Oh right, in terms of who they choose to lay off, it's true. We'll give you evaluation there. Okay. It could be focused on so really I think this is your second issue, the impact on monopsony. Again, you've got the analysis here. So again, what we're doing is raising significantly different impact. So again, that's a form of evaluation there. It's wages, it's rise in the unemployment, so there's an analysis. This is good here. Wages, women trained, trainers don't always. Sorry, what rubbed that bit out? Okay, these are two very good diagrams with supporting analysis there. The key thing is that we've not established, that I'm hoping that you will, is the fact that, which it becomes more evaluative, is the fact that monopsonies tend to exist in healthcare and education, which are two areas which are female dominated, and that's when we can have the effective use and positive use of trade unions to counteract the effect of the monopsonist demand of labour. These are female dominated industries, and in fact, that's what you see. So we need some application within this essay to bring it to life. Okay, we're looking for positive discrimination. And certainly we've seen that within Europe again. Perhaps there is an attempt to apply here which could be rewarded as such. Certainly there's the idea of quotas and legislation. I think you have weak evaluation within there. So you've got a 3-issue essay. Let's see how you conclude it. Okay, so certain circumstances is evaluative. Therefore, opinion, professional long hours, spectacular setting out doing companies. Sounds good. I think you're into level 4 here. I don't think the conclusion is really engaging and strong enough to warrant a level 5 mark, but I think you have good analysis within your essay, and you have reasonable evaluation. Perhaps I'll put you at a mid-mark in level 4, which is 19 at 25. I'd say that there's application, and your ability to discuss the issues within the essay perhaps lacking in terms of talking about those monopsonies and bilateral monopolies, where you have a monopsony demander of labour and a trade union as a monopoly supplier of labour. That's where they counterbalance each other. You've identified that as an important factor within the essay, and that's the key thing that gets you into level 4 in terms of the quality of your analysis, but you haven't brought it to life with reference to the real world. But it's a good essay. 19 I think is a good mark.